Step back, Jay. Harden. Bullseye.
Sixers looking very focused in the second half. Maxey looking for more. He's got it.
Daniel House, little up and under on the lob, and then flies in with the emphatic one-hand jam.
Niang looking for more from outside. Bang, bang, George Niang.
Joel, the process heavy.
What's up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of the Pick Swap Podcast. And I want to just open up today saying, wow, we are recording this following Game 4. It's been a roller coaster of a day so far for us, and it's me and Sean Barnard as usual. Sean, how you feeling right now, man? It's been a wild day.
Yeah, never in doubt. You know, just according to plan, just exactly how the Sixers wanted it. I was very close to being in full disaster mode that this whole era of Sixers basketball was over. I was put it out on Twitter and stand by that if they had lost that game, that is worse than the Hawks collapse. They were holding by like 10 to 15 throughout that entire game, and everyone in the building, everyone watching the game could just feel it was coming. We could feel the collapse. We saw the offense fall apart, but you know what? They did get the job done. The Sixers and Celtics are 2-2 after 4 games, and that's a pretty fine result based on, if you ask me, going into this series. So deep breaths, they found a way, and we'll take it, I guess.
Yeah, I feel like the general feeling is relief from this game, dude. Like, what an unbelievable day. It was I don't even know how to describe all the emotions that flow through your body in a game like that, where you're playing so well. Obviously, Harden and Embiid played spectacularly. Embiid kind of fell off towards the end. You got to assume it's probably a portion of that goes to his conditioning and what he's kind of recovering from right now, not to make excuses for him. And, we'll get into all of this, but you get magnificent performances from your two best players. They combine for, give me a number here. Embiid had 34? Harden had 42.
So yeah.
So you're looking at like 76 points between the two of them. And that's, maybe it's a sign, whatever it is, but wow, like you get all of that and then you fall apart. You can't get stops. You're fouling a lot, whether, however you look at those fouls and what came with that. But you can't get anything going on offense. I feel like end of the quarters have to be something that are really pinpointed going into Game 5. But they found a way, man. This is what the playoffs are about, finding a way. Boston is a damn good team. They're, the best remaining team in the entire, NBA right now from, a ranking standpoint. So you going back to Boston tied 2-2 here with Embiid being not 100% and having missed a game. It's a win right now. And just got to keep carrying momentum into Game 5.
Yeah, I want to go through each of these guys a little individually. I want to talk about Embiid, what to make of Horford taking his lunch for half that game. PJ Tucker, what that was about. Tyrese MAxey, I need to see more. But we got to kick things off starting right at the top with James Harden here. I mean, to just go through the stat line, 47 minutes, 42 points, 9 assists, 8 rebounds, shot 16 of 23 from the field, 6 of 9 from 3, and 1 turnover he ended with. He was at 0 for most of that game. I thought it was going to end at 0. But you know what? I don't know what to fully make of James Harden. The night and day difference between games 1 and 4 and games 2 and 3 is more drastic than I've seen out of like any player. It's like Anthony Davis, like almost, in how he's coming out. But you know what? Like, they needed every single bucket that he gave them, every single pass that he made. And he is the reason that they have 2 wins in this series. He is responsible for stealing both those games, hit that big time 3 off the catch and shoot to win the game. And he competed on the defensive end. I could not be happier with James Harden from tonight. What did you think of Harden's play tonight, James?
Yeah, dude, what a night from him. I really do enjoy. I think it's one of the things that I've enjoyed, more as a Sixers fan than almost anything else is a James Harden masterclass like that. I mean, we haven't gotten anyone. He hasn't scored 40 in a Sixers uniform up until Game 1 of this series, and then he has 2 and 4 nights, or 2 and 4 games, I should say, in this series. 42 points, really carried the offense, hit the floater at the end of regulation to tie, and then hits the 3 on the left corner to close the game, to win the game. And beyond that, you said the turnovers. I think something that we watched compared to, especially Game 3, he turned the ball over a lot. He was not decisive, and he ended up getting to the paint and missing a bunch of layups or turning the ball over. And he really flipped that around. Still Would like to see a couple more of those layups go down, but he found a way to get to his spots. I love that he's going back to the mid-range. That's really been his bread and butter so far this series. He eats them alive in that portion of his scoring. Like whether if he gets anybody smaller than him there, it's barbecue chicken for him there. It's been really awesome to see his progression as a scorer with Embiid on the court again. So just a fantastic day from him. It is insane that he can go from looking like the most important player on the entire court to maybe the worst that we've had on the team. So it's a really strange like Jekyll and Hyde situation with Harden right now.
Yeah. Yeah, and he was getting to the rim again tonight, which is super huge. That's a big deal. And he was getting by Robert Williams at times, Al Horford at times. So important to note there. I think Jaylen Brown played a part in it. He picked up those 2 early fouls. When Harden had that stretch in the first half where he went off, he did not have Jaylen Brown on it. That's been the tactical switch by Joe Mazzulla to slow Harden down specifically and make the defensive changes. And Jaylen Brown, I mean, is a terrific defender, the best player on the Celtics, I believe. Jaylen Brown has changed this series on both ends of the floor, but he really has done a really nice job on Harden, having moments where he didn't have that and he had an easier route to the rim and doing things. And then I think Harden just got it going from there. But yeah, dude, it's so strange. Like game 1, he looked like MVP James Harden. Yeah. Games 2 and 3, he looked like Mike Conley, James Harden. And then game 4, like he's back. And there's part of me that just wants to see a little bit of a middle ground here. Like, let's see if we can have like a competent game. Like game 3, which I was in the building with, shout out RB Philly Take checking that out. And it's like, we were bordering on Ben Simmons territory of like him passing up looks. And that was the most concerning thing to me is it wasn't the misses. It wasn't the lack of separation. Him passing up on looks is where all the red flags went out for me, because that's not the James Harden rep whatsoever. That's not who he is. And that's not the guy we want. That's like a refreshing change for the Sixers. We'll take a guy that will shoot us out of a game, because there are shots to go around on this team. It can't just be Joel. There's guys that need to take them. And when Harden was refusing that's when I was like, this is over. Like, this isn't working. None of it. But to his credit, James Harden with one of the best bounce back performances we've seen. And he stepped up as Embiid kind of spiraled down the stretch tonight. So if you want to swing into that next, talk to me about your feeling on how much of this are you hyped for Harden? How much of it are you concerned for Embiid? And how did the big fella play overall in your mind?
Yeah. I mean, one last point, like just with Harden is I think they're balancing the situation. Like game 3, and again, this is not to like make any excuses for any of them. Like the worst part about game 3 was that they were in it the entire time and they could have won. It was a 4-point game with under 2 minutes left. Like they could have won. It was a lot of effort and a lot of like just weird shit happened. So, but you look at Harden in this game and it was time to go. When it was time to go and Embiid wasn't, getting himself into good situations, and we'll talk about him, but when it wasn't working for Embiid, it was time to look to Harden. And I think it's nice to have a guy that you can turn to and say, like, we need a bucket. It's got to be you. A lot of times it's going to be isolation, or at the most, it's going to be a pick and roll situation where he's trying to get a switch of some sort. So it is super nice to have a guy like that. And I think he needs to keep the foot on the gas, trusting that fact that Embiid will still get his. Like, it doesn't have to be a situation where you have to defer. It should never be either one of them deferring to the other. They should be working with each other. And when it's time to go for one of them, you go ahead. And vice versa when it comes down to it. Embiid, I thought Embiid, like, for the most part, played a pretty good game. It's setting in the differences you see him just like physically. There's situations defensively, I think specifically. The thing that really bothers me, and something that's like, maybe this is kind of realizing that Tyrese is a young kid. The rebounding situations, the loose ball situations, like, it gets under my skin. You have a great defensive possession late in the game.
Yeah.
And Embiid had a play where you got to go up and get the rebound. You got to close out that possession. There's little things like that are frustrating with him at times, where that seems like a conditioning thing or a physicality thing. I think that's where he's started to hinge a little bit more today. But I think for the most part, like, when their offense was flowing and he was, like, as a byproduct of a flowing offense, was capitalizing on his opportunities, he was really good. Once the pace of play slows down and they just dump it into him with 8 seconds left on the shot clock after they struggle to get it a post pass in, and he has to turn around and face like basically 4 guys where all their attention are on him, that's where he'll struggle. And that's like what cannot happen late in games. And it's what we've struggled watching for the last couple of years. I don't know if that's a Doc thing or if that's just them like forcing it to Embiid, whatever it is. But once those situations happen and he's not making tough shots, he looks bad. So that's kind of the situation they ran in today. But I think for the most part, like I'm not freaking out about him. I think that he's going to be totally fine. And we saw a really cool moment between him and PJ, which we'll definitely talk about later, which I think will flip the switch for him.
Yeah, for sure, and I'm excited to touch on that too. I have mixed feelings about this Embiid game. For starters, he's looked significantly healthier than I expected since he came back. Even at game 2, which he was probably the worst he's looked physically in any of these matchups, still was above what I expected going in. Game 3, I thought he looked 100% fine. Looked very good. Was the best player on the Sixers by a pretty significant margin. And tonight, I thought he looked even better physically. I thought he's moving just fine, getting up and down, able to cut, able to jump, everything that you could hope for. And sure, he still has the bulky brace and is dealing with stuff. And I'm sure it hurts more than he's letting on or that any of us are aware of. But he looked fine and he looked comfortable early on. He was getting to his sets. He was getting not easy buckets, but he was getting to his spots, capitalizing, scoring, all things we wanted. It felt like there was a shift like midway through that game where, like, I don't even want to say he panicked or whatever, but it just, things stopped clicking. I hated seeing Al Horford get the better of me. He had the 2 block shots on him and a couple other moments. The Al Horford shimmy down the lane, man, that one sent shivers down my spine. When he dunked that and hit his little shimmy to the crowd, I was like, I hate this guy so much, man. And I can't believe that we're like reopening these wounds. And it's ultra frustrating because I really believe that we were at the point where I even tweeted out, like, it's cool in the evolution of Joel Embiid that originally Al Horford was like the Joel stopper, that this was the matchup he struggled with. And now it's like when it's the one-on-one matchup, Embiid and Horford, it's like, this is what we're looking for. But it didn't turn out to be the way toward that end of the game. And I guess a credit to Horford is he did get the better of Joel for a couple, and they needed Harden to step up. So, I mean, Joel still did his thing. He had a bucket in overtime that was huge, hit a couple free throws that were big, and he didn't quit on it by any means, but it did look like he was not the version of himself by the end of the game that he was at the beginning. And that brought up a little bit of a concern in my mind.
I genuinely think it's conditioning. And I think when you look back about previous series and previous matchups with Al Horford, I think what we looked at when he was younger was that he would fade out later in games because the conditioning wasn't there. And it seemed like it got to that point again, right? Like he wasn't getting the easy buckets. And when he starts to like rely more on just like, you know, whether it's foul grifting or trying to find like these outs to plays rather than trying to go through the play and make the right decision. And he ended up, I think, turning it back later in that overtime. The pass to Harden is a fantastic decision and something 2 or 3 years ago, like he doesn't make that pass. Like, we're being completely honest. Sure. That's an evolution of Joel Embiid that we have to appreciate. In a night where, you know, later in the game, things aren't going his way. He makes a smart read, sees Jaylen Brown come in, hits one of the best 3-point shooters of all time in the corner for a chance to win the game, and giving up his opportunity to tie or win the game and passes it up to, you know, a teammate. That's a fantastic thing for Embiid to do. And I don't want that to get lost in the shuffle, but I think the conditioning wise, like Al Horford is just like not going to bite on pump fakes. He's not going to foul stupidly. He's like that smart defender that can piss Joel Embiid off, and understandably, because he pissed me off, and I'm assuming the rest of Philadelphia as well.
He's the worst.
I'm going to do my best, Sean. I know that I don't do this well, but I'm going to do my best to not badmouth or say anything rude about any of these Celtics players. I'm going to try to be civil through the entire situation here because we won. If we had lost, we might be on a different side of it. But yeah, it was so frustrating. The shimmy, he did something earlier in the game too after a 3. We didn't get to talk about in game 2 when he hit the 3 and then jumped up in the air and acted like they just won the championship. So yeah, he's getting under my skin, but I think it's like spin zone here could be a really good thing. I think that's going to piss Embiid off. And I think we can kind of move to the Tucker situation now. Because I wanted to read the quote, like the full quote from what he was talking about, the moment where he got in Embiid's ear. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to read the quote specifically from Tucker, and then we can talk about his game.
Okay, go for it.
Here's the quote. "Nobody can guard Joe one-on-one. There's no way. I'm sorry. It's not any respect to Al or anybody else, but I've guarded him for a lot of years. And when he's aggressive and assertive, it's impossible. And I saw him 2 plays in a row not do that. And we can't have that. We can't have that, not with the season on the line. We just can't have that." And then you see him come over and yell at Embiid like he gave him some. And there has never been anyone that Embiid has ever played with, probably ever in his career, maybe Jimmy Butler, maybe, be able to hold him accountable in that sense. And I thought that speaks to whatever you paid PJ Tucker and whatever he did this entire season or looking ahead to next. That's why you got him. That's why he's worth it. and it played, I think, was a microcosm for how he is as an important piece of this team. So I just wanted to see what your thoughts were there.
Yeah, and I don't want it to go unnoticed that where this happened was in the middle of a huge and one by PJ, which he secured a Tobias Harris air ball, went back up, scored it, got fouled, and then went right to Embiid's ear to get in it and bark and be a dog in his ear, basically. So it was a huge play by PJ, and probably even huger that he was in Embiid's ear and telling him these stuff. And that's exactly why he's here, is they need these guys. PJ has been a little bit more willing as a shooter. I will give Doc a little credit. He yanked PJ pretty early in game 3 because he wasn't shooting. And that's not the easiest thing to do based on how long the leash has been on Tucker all season. But it was absolutely the right call. And I think it was a little kick in the butt for PJ, which he needed. And he's right. He's right about Embiid, that he isn't always assertive, and that when he starts to take off is where it hurt. We saw it down the stretch. I won't say that it drastically changed. I thought Joel didn't become this dominant force after by any means, but it's the message that does matter, and he's right. So I am a PJ guy. As much as there's times where I'm frustrated. There's always like 1 or 2 moments during the game where I'm just like, that's why he's here. And as long as he can keep doing that, which he absolutely did tonight, that and one was massive in this game. So shout out PJ, and I agree. Embiid needed to hear that.
And he hit the free throw.
Yeah,
and he did hit the free throw to go ahead late in the game. It's like little things like that. An offensive rebound leads to an and one. He's, I don't think by any means that he's been like a defensive stopper, but he's just annoying as hell on that end for the other team, whoever he's guarding. And there have been possessions at times, and you look back at game 1, there was a clip that I saw online. It was like a great defensive possession by the Sixers, but it was all PJ Tucker switching and closing out and fighting for position and commanding the defense and pushing everyone around and telling it, like, he does little things that I think a lot of people will miss, and it doesn't even show up on the broadcast or the stat sheet, but it's really important that he's around. And you talk about the veteran leadership, and they had mentioned their film meeting and everything that happened today. I am sure that there were words said by PJ where he wants things to be different. And it's important. It's super important to this team. And, someone that was talking about it, we can kind of shift gears here. Tyrese MAxey has struggled this entire series. There hasn't been much to like about it. The Celtics, I think, are just kind of the breed of team that he, doesn't feel comfortable attacking the rim. They have a lot of length on him. And they have great perimeter defenders. It's what makes their team really good and really tough to beat. Size, length, size, athleticism. They can keep up with him. And the three just hasn't been falling at a rate to have them come out enough for him to get by and get to the rim. He's gotten like mashed at the rim a couple of times throughout this series, and he's really struggled. So I just wanted to see what you're thinking, like on the meter of like good to bad, what's with going on with MAxey, and just like what can he do to fix it?
Yeah, pretty bad for sure on that meter. It hasn't been good. The thing I'll give MAxey credit for is, I mean, he's mentally tough, man. Like he keeps trying, he keeps going. I respected it in game 3 too. And in the same way that I was so critical of Harden for like passing up looks, I respected that MAxey like went out and sought his own shot. He shot 4 3-pointers like right out of halftime, only connected on one of them, and 3 of them were like completely self-created of him going out and getting it. I like that. I like that he's like not shying away from the moment he's trying. But with that being said, like some of the shot selection has been brutal, like worse than I've ever seen from him this series. Some of like the long threes have not been at the right time. He had the 2-for-1 opportunity that just was super costly. And in today's game, like this isn't just a MAxey thing, but MAxey's done it a couple times. I don't get the testing Robert Williams the way that this team does. Like, know the scouting report a little bit of the teams you're playing. What Robert Williams does is he's one of the NBA's best rim protectors. That's what he does. And like MAxey today got pretty bad on one where he got smacked from behind, where he just tried to blow by it and lay it up and got it sent back to half court. And it's just like you just got to be smarter than that. And there were a couple times where he drove in like pretty much out of control. And in general, he does a really good job of going at his 100 miles per hour and still managing to finish it. But it's just felt like a little extra out of control in this series. And defensively, he's got a target on his back. And I've given him a ton of credit for getting better on the defensive side of the ball because he absolutely has this year. But like the Celtics were just running a screen to get him on Jason Tatum just about every play down the stretch there. And as hard as Maxey's trying, and like I give him credit for competing, that's just not a matchup he can win. And he wasn't. And Jason Tatum was having his way by the end of the game. So I personally, as much as I like Maxey and as much as the future is bright, I would have benched him for a significant part of today's game. I would have slid Melton in and rocked with a little bit better size and a little better chance on the defensive end, especially when Maxey's shot isn't falling. I hope he can find a spark and get the shot to start falling, because they could definitely use it. But I'm not overly optimistic that we're going to see a change in Maxey's play.
Yeah, I think he has to become more of like an opportunist rather than someone that's trying to create their own shot. I feel like at times with the situation they're in is kind of like it's going to be Harden or Embiid for the majority of the time, offensive sets. And then the other guys that are scoring are capitalizing on an opportunity created by the two-man game or created by a mismatch that Harden creates or Embiid creates, just the gravity of the two of them. So I think you got to get him in better catch and shoot situations. I don't think he's getting a lot of them. You mentioned a lot of those threes he's taking are self-created, rushed, forced. Like it just doesn't look natural to him right now. And there's times where he's in that mode and he can force those shots and they go in because he's in a rhythm, but he's yet to find that rhythm. And I think that something that would really benefit him is like kind of having the PJ Tucker situation where he stands in that corner and gets that skip pass and he has a chance to load, catch, and shoot and knock a couple of those downs. We saw early in the season how successful he was on those situations, and it's gone completely out of their game. And I don't know if that's an emphasis that they want to have, just because you kind of rely on him to be a spark plug, a guy that adds some supplementary offense, and he just hasn't really been able to do it. He hasn't been able to get out on fast breaks too much. And when they have, like the Sixers on fast break, they're drunk unless Harden is controlling the ball. Melton had smoked a layup today. Tobias Harris, dude, like Tobias, we're going to have to talk about him too. I don't know if you have any more to say about Maxey, but the two of them in a situation like this where, you know, Embiid and Harden give you 76 points. You look down the line at who's next. It's got to be one of those two guys. And today it really wasn't. Tobias was brutal today and on Friday night. It's just kind of been a mess for the two of them right now. Like, what is the way out of it? How do you see Tobias kind of working out of it?
Yeah, and just to put a little bow on Maxey, like you obviously don't win playoff series and NBA championships based on what 22-year-olds do. Like it's just I get like it's hard. It's a tough position for him to be in, but I do think we're clearly seeing like he's not quite ready for this moment yet. He's not ready to be a focal point of a championship contending offense. And not fully a knock on him, because those are huge shoes to fill for sure. But it does suck. Like we're counting on him to kind of be that guy, to be the third guy for sure. So I hope he can straighten himself out. I have no doubts that he's going to try and play his way through it. Again, I trust the mental toughness of him more so than probably anyone else on this roster. Maybe PJ Tucker, I'll toss above that. But either way, like I do trust Maxey to continue putting the work and continue trying, and hopefully there's a turnaround. But he's in a difficult spot, and the Celtics matchup is particularly tough on him. So yeah, to move on to
sorry, I want to jump in real quick. Just like the Celtics are a top 3 defense in the league. They have guys that pose like really, really strong threats defensively to him and this entire team. Like, don't get me wrong. Like the Celtics are a really good team. I think we all kind of lose sight of that. They're a really well-constructed, deep team with a lot of good defensive, strong guards. That's not a great situation, not a great recipe for success for him. I like what you said. Like, I think he'll find his way out of it. I think that he will have a game in the next 3 where he's important, or at least like a good portion of their winning, or like just anything, man. Anything. Today was just a tough one, but yeah, go ahead and talk about Toby.
Yeah, Toby's been rough. Toby, another negative spin on this one. And Tobias, dude, it really sucks. Like ever since he said the tell a friend to tell a friend I'm a sharpshooter, he's just forgotten how to shoot, and that's not great. Like I was so hyped early on in the season that like he was this guy, the catch and shoot dude, the guy that knows his role, does his thing. He's not that guy at all anymore. He's passing up open looks. He was good in the net series. He's actually very good in the net series. He carried some offensive load while Embiid was out for sure. I don't know. And it's also, he missed Maxey. Toby missed Maxey on a couple like outlet passes on the fast break that would have created points. It feels like he's like a step slower mentally than I usually see him on a basketball court, because he, as much as like we've complained about like areas of his game, he's a pretty cerebral basketball player. He's a pretty high IQ on how he reads the game. It hasn't looked like that in the series, and especially today. I thought today has been the worst version of him reading a game, knowing where to be, knowing what to do. And defensively, he has not really held up either. Again, these are tough matchups, asking him to guard Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, but he has not had any success with it whatsoever. And I don't know what to do to get him right. If it's limiting his minutes, Doc, also has not given him as long a leash as it was the case in the regular season. He's kind of been rotating. We saw Niang get a little bump today. Niang, who knocked down 3 threes, and shout out him for proving Doc right to let him play. But we saw Niang getting some fourth quarter minutes when Tobias was struggling. And so I don't think Tobias is as cemented in a role, and maybe that's harmful to him mentally. But yeah, he's just got to make quicker decisions, and he's just got to get back to reading the game in the way that I know him to be. I can look past a lot of the on-court stuff. The mental mistakes are what's been especially frustrating to me.
Yeah, and I think it's on both sides too. I think the Sixers in general today missed assignments or didn't get back and lost guys in transition. And that's the kind of stuff that against a team like this, you just can't have. And it's the reason why they go on runs to end quarters and you just lose sight of the important part of the game. And that's taking it one play at a time. And I feel like they get lost in all of that sometimes. And there were multiple times where Embiid turned around and was like, someone is supposed to be there. And the one of the two of them was Maxey or Harris. It felt like both, every time it has been the two of them. Someone's not where they're supposed to be or supposed to be where they're not. So it's been Harris, I do agree with you, is normally on top of it and at least smart. And I think he's done a fine enough job. Tatum has been entirely unimpressive, at least over the last 2 or 3 games. Game 1, he was really good. But I mean, he started off the game tonight terribly. He ended up having a fine second half, but I've been fairly unimpressed with him over the last couple of games.
Jaylen Brown is the best player on the Celtics, and it has been for quite some time. I get Tatum has his moments where he absolutely takes over, but Jaylen Brown on a night-to-night basis is the guy that they count on to produce on both ends of the floor. He changes the game for this team more, both offensively and defensively. I mean, he's taken James Harden out of game 2 and 3. Harden got back to himself because of the foul issues and stuff like that tonight. But Jaylen Brown, and even look back to last year's finals run, he was the man, especially in those finals and through most of those playoff series. And from an efficiency standpoint, it's really not that close how much better Brown is than Tatum. Tatum shoots better from deep, but as field goals as a whole, Brown's that guy. So I do expect Tatum to still have his moments, and I do give him credit for he struggled today shooting, and he still found ways to impact the game. Made some nice passes, helped out on the boards, had a couple blocks, and so I do give him credit for playing. Yeah, he ended with 18. So that's pretty ridiculous for a guy who's a wing, 6'7", whatever. But yeah, I do think Jaylen Brown's the biggest concern. He was hitting everything tonight. And to touch on the Sixers defense as a whole, this has been jumping out of me a ton. Is they're overhelping and over doubling way too much, and it is breaking down their entire defense. They're bailing the Celtics out by just letting them collapse their defense and getting these open 3-point looks. And I feel like it happens all the time. There's some extent where it's just if you're beat, let the guy try and recover rather than completely blowing everything up. And I get it, situationally, and Embiid's obviously the guy we want doing that because he's the rim protector and can change stuff like that. But it feels like we are creating open 3-point looks for the Celtics by doing this in a way that at a lot of occasions, I don't think the Sixers have needed to do at all. And that's been something that's been frustrating to me too.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think but I think this is why I am still very optimistic about this team is you get a win like you get today. And you were in a game Friday night where you really had no business being there. They have not played, I think, anywhere close to the best version of their basketball. And I think it really does start on the defensive end. They're a top 5, top 10 defensive team in the league. They have to continue to act like it. And obviously Boston exploits some weaknesses in their area. But I think when it comes down to it, that's going to be where they make a difference in this game or in this series. And obviously both Boston and Philadelphia are great defensive teams. So I could see things getting a little bit tighter later in this series. And no, you're definitely right. I think Jaylen Brown I think the way I would put it is he's way more of a catalyst. If he's playing really well, in which he has been, Boston's offense really starts to flow. And it's really hard to stop him, man. He's really, really good. I think that he's been underappreciated playing alongside the NBA's golden child for the last however many years, whom can do no wrong. So, it's not surprising to have this type of series from Brown, and I expect it to continue. But I think they'll be okay. I think the Sixers are going to be okay. Embiid has not been the best version of himself. We've gotten 2 drunk Harden games and 2 amazing Harden games, and we've got essentially 2 no-shows in terms of Harden and Maxey, just stats wise from those guys. And you're still waiting on some guys to step up, and we had Melton step up in game 1. Niang stepped up tonight. And it was one of those things, dude. How do you feel about Niang right now, like in his rotation? I don't know what to make of him.
Yeah, so I'll say like they needed 3-point shooting. That's obviously what Niang does.
Yeah.
I thought 19 minutes is a little bit of a lot for him for sure. My greater concern, I don't understand not playing Jalen McDaniels today,
Yeah.
or I feel like the reason that Jalen McDaniels was traded for was pretty much for the Boston Celtics. Is that he is a guy with length, versatility. He's switchable. He's athletic. Like looks like he could be a member of the Boston Celtics. They have all of those types of guys. Like more of that, like. The Sixers lack that, so I've been surprised by that. I even like Daniel House in some of these matchups. The Sixers only went 8 deep today, which is less than they have for the rest of the series. I was a little bit surprised to see that too. I think Niang is playing to the best of his abilities, and he's competing on the defensive end too. He's another guy with a target on his back that the Celtics are looking to just attack every time. He picked up 5 fouls in his 19 minutes today, which once again I'm absolutely fine with. Like if you're going to be out there for that long, feel free to use them all for sure. But yeah, I mean, he is who he is. He has his limitations for sure. He does compete. He did knock down 3 threes and deserves credit for that. But I would feel a lot more comfortable if it was like Jalen McDaniels or Daniel House or a guy with some athleticism and defensive ability to stick on that side of the floor.
Yeah, I really like McDaniels. I know we've talked about him a bunch, but I think like in the moments where you do have Paul Reed on the court, like I think it gives you a different identity that you get to express for 8 minutes at a time, right? Like him and Paul Reed on the court together, you pair that with some spacing and this creation of James Harden. And I really thought that they had something brewing there with that group. And McDaniels can switch and play defense. And, when he gets switched on to Tatum, I'm like, he's okay. He can handle it. He doesn't need the help immediately like a Niang. I think the thing with Niang is like he can't do the stupid shit he was doing early in this series. Like you were out there for one reason and one reason only. And today it looked like they had gotten into it. Like, dude, if you catch the ball, if you're even relatively open, the only reason you're out here is to space the floor. Shoot the goddamn ball. Like, don't pump fake and dribble drive into the paint and do a spin move and try to do a hook shot. Like maybe in November, work on that against the Magic. It's game 4, brother. We need you to shoot it. That's the only reason you're there. So if he's getting out there today, what did he shoot from 3? At 3 of 5?
3 for 6.
3 for 6. Like
Really
perfect.
Fun. Yeah.
Perfect. That's what you're there for. He was big in those moments. I actually mentioned to my roommate, I'm like, we've talked about a guy that's going to step in and Melton, it was him in game 1, like 4 or 5 from 3. These guys have to be willing to shoot. You got to take some of that pressure off of these guys and capitalize on the opportunities that they're creating. Niang was able to do that today. And those 9 points are incredibly important in a game that comes down to the final possession. So like, if you can come in and give us that, don't be terrible on the defensive end and give the effort. I think that's a big thing for him is like, he definitely tries his ass off. He definitely tries his ass off on the defensive end. Athletically, he's just not there compared to guys like Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. But he works really hard and he does fight for those rebounds and he does some smart things on that end. And he takes charges, which like as annoying as that is sometimes, like for him to always try to be going for it, it can change the momentum of a game for a guy like that. So I don't know. I've gone back and forth on him. Right now, we're in a good spot, I guess.
Yeah, I think I would like to reel him in a little bit. Let's not.
Yeah.
I don't think he should be the 8th guy on the bench pretty significantly. I mean, we're talking about like if we're going by minutes, like he obviously played more than Paul Reed. Paul Reed, who I love him, but has not been the best Paul Reed moments so far in this series. Today he had the one dunk, the little reverse dunk, which was nice, but I think he's struggled to kind of be the Paul Reed that we've seen. The madness has not really translated as well. But as far as Niang, like I do like that he absolutely competes. He absolutely uses what he's got to the best of his abilities. I would like to see, give me some Jalen McDaniels. And I thought he played well in the moments. In game 3, I thought the first half specifically, he made a very positive impact. So give me a little bit more of that. But overall, I can't complain about Doc too much. The fourth quarter was a little bit of a meltdown. I would like for him to have stepped in. I also probably would have benched Maxey for stretches or at least given Melton more runs. So I guess I take it back. I can complain about Doc. I have a couple things here. But yeah, I mean, the offense is what it is. It's going to be isolation based. That's the nature of building around Joel Embiid and James Harden. But when it falls apart, as they were outscored 24-15 in the fourth quarter, like it looks ugly. And I think having a little bit more of a feel for when to get in there, I would have appreciated today.
Yeah, and I know like it immediately goes to him, but I think in general over this series so far, over the playoffs so far. I think he's done a really good job.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of help. I think there's a lot of other help and guys that are contributing as leaders that he didn't have before, which I think is good for everybody, obviously. But yeah, I think like in moments where you really need stops and where you really need that defensive versatility, like replace Maxey with Melton, replace Harris with McDaniels, keep Tucker and Embiid, and let Harden run the show offensively. And I think that gives you a lot of like versatility on both ends. Like the meat of your defense being Melton, McDaniels, Tucker, and Embiid, like that's really strong unit. And then offensively, like at the very least, McDaniels gives you the opportunity to throw a lob, like put him in the dunker spot and let him catch a lob, or do that little slip screen that he does and let him catch a lob. Like at least be a threat. At least have to have some eyes on him. You know what I mean? Where I feel like at times, like Niang, obviously you got to keep an eye. You got to close out on him, but like that's really it. McDaniels can't hit, your occasional three. I wish I was a little bit more confident in him as a shooter, but I think he'll get there. I really do like him. I think he's a guy that I hope they keep around and make as at least part of the rotation going forward. I think he could contribute a lot. And like you said, like versatility defensively, like that's all you can ask for out of a guy from the bench. So I would like to see more of him, but we'll see.
Yeah, I really like what he could become, and he's not a finished product by any means. His shot release is still extremely slow, but you know what? He's 6'9", 6'10". He's bouncy, and there's a lot of things he does do. So I would like for him to get some run again. I think he can be helpful to what they need, but we'll see. As far as some other just final thoughts on this game is, I do think that for the most part, this was the most focused effort we've seen from the Sixers team in any of these matchups. It did kind of go down as the game went on, but especially off the opening tip off, it looked like there was a new attitude within this roster, which is important to see. And yeah, if you told me coming into the series that we were 2-2 after 4 games, that we had split in Boston and split in Philly, I'd be okay with it. And it did not go down in the way I expected or anyone. It's been a messy sequence to get here, but you know what? This is now best of 3 series, and we can't ask for much more than that.
Yeah, dude, it's the playoffs. It's the way things go. Like I think after game 1, people overreacted, and I have a Celtics fan. One of my coworkers, one of my friends is a Celtics fan, and I walked out to him after game 1, and I was like, "It's on, man. It is on. This is a Philadelphia Boston playoff matchup. It's supposed to be messy and grimy, and people are supposed to get stepped on and punched and hit and knocked over and." Like there's supposed to be trash talk and all that stuff. Like as much as I go through a roller coaster of emotions watching these games and I'm stressed out and I'm sweating and freaking out the entire time, like that's what you watch the game for. That's what this is all about. So you're 2-2 against your biggest rival in the entire game. You have the opportunity to play games 5, 6, and maybe 7. So you got a chance here. You got a fighting chance in the playoffs, with a chance to do something really awesome and knock down the Celtics. So like I'm pumped for it. I like I said earlier, I don't think they've played their best game yet. So I think that's still something that they have left in their bag, and there's another layer for them to dig into. So I'm excited for it. I'm always like this though.
Yeah, that. And losing in 6 sounds a lot better than losing in 5 if we want to even
So don't even talk about it. We don't even know worry about it yet.
Yeah, but either way, we will take it. I'm okay sitting 2-2 right now. So, James, what's your prediction from here if you want to go the next 3 games of the series then?
I think the Sixers win in 7. How crazy is that? I think they go into Boston and rip their hearts out. I think if you want me to give like game by game, if they're gonna win in 7, I think they'll go like loss, win, win.
Yeah.
Loss in Boston, win in Philadelphia, win in Boston. Sounds pretty good to me. I love to hear it. So I mean, if I could tell you am I confident that's gonna happen, I don't know. I really have no idea. It depends on which version of the Sixers we get in game 5. But man, it's like I said, it's an opportunity. It's a chance to do something awesome. So I think they win in 7.
All right. I love it. That's been, I've been Sixers in 7 for most of this playoff stretch. That's been my prediction from the start. So I'm not going to move off it right now, but yeah, I do think they probably drop on Tuesday in Boston, come back and win at home. And then game 7, it's on, but that's all you can ask for is having a chance like that. So we'll take it. We'll take 2-2. And yeah, we'll check back in after as the series moves on. So yeah. I believe Tuesday's the next game, right?
Yep.
Okay. So appreciate all you guys for tuning in. Me and James will be back for probably a breakdown after that. I'm going to try and squeeze one in. I'll do something if James isn't around. We'll figure something out. But yeah, We'll be on top of it. Thank you guys once again. Make sure to drop a like on this video. Drop a comment once you got as a prediction how you feel about today. We will talk with you next time.